everybody, my name is Chloe. I like to do reading, writing, sometimes lifestyle vlogs, and today we are doing another writing vlog slash writing challenge. If you're familiar with me, you would know that I love writing, but it's hard to get me to write, mostly because I'm a very busy person. Most of the time in my free time, I like to just rot in my bed and read my silly little books. But I also am a big writer, you know, when the inspiration strikes me. So I have to do kind of fun, interesting things to force myself to write. And that's very relevant in this moment in time because I'm currently on the third draft of my first ever novel. That is beautiful. Please ignore her back there. But anyways, so I don't really give a lot of information on my story, but I thought today it might be fun to give a little bit of information before I describe what I'm doing today. So basically my main character was a very highly sought after debutante. Then she had, for some reason, she had a fall from grace after a broken engagement, and now 2 years later she is firmly on the shelf. You know, she's kind of content with, you know, she tells people she's content with not finding love or anything like that, but her mother, who is sickly, you know, very much wants her daughter to be in love and happy, so that is kind of what sparks the events of the book. That's all I'm saying for now. I definitely have to kind of work on giving just like the really quick, I can't remember what it's called, you know, when you like kind of the sales pitch for it, but that's my main character. And this is relevant because like I said, I've been working on this book for, actually I think I started writing it in 2020. Yeah, I started writing it like very firmly during the pandemic. And a fun fact about me is instead of doing New Year's resolutions this year, I did a bingo card, and on my bingo card, things I'm working towards this year, I decided I was going to finish this draft. And you know, if it's not the final draft, I'm gonna finish it and I'm shelving it for a while because I need, for my little brain to work, I need to move on into other avenues. So today, the challenge that I'm doing is, ta-da! This is a candle that my friend Selene bought me when we were at Trident Booksellers a few weeks ago. It is heirloom tomato scent, which you think would be weird, but I was just smelling it in the bookstore and there was a baguette one too. Oh my god, it just smells very fresh, and yes, a little bit like tomato, a little bit like basil, but not like a pizza, I swear. But what I'm doing is I'm going to, every time I light this candle, I'm going to write, and I am going to write until the candle burns out. It's a very nice ceramic candle, so I think afterwards, I don't know what I'm gonna use it for yet. There's no hole in the bottom that I could use it as a planter, but maybe I could make a hole. Anyways, that is what I am doing. And obviously, you know, I'll have to probably at least write for an hour the first time just to make sure, you know, it's called memory, candle memory, that it burns all the way around before, you know, you blow it out the first time. So I could not find how many hours on the box. It's a very cute box, by the way. I'm going to show a little close-up of it, but I could not for the life of me find how many hours is in this candle. I'm gonna look it up online and see if I can find it. But I'm just gonna record and try to keep track of how many hours I write and hopefully get this freaking draft done. So come on. Good morning, everybody. It is the day after all of those last clips you just saw, and thank God I had the presence of mind to start that candle burn on a Saturday, because I lit the candle at like 6 p.m. I blew it out at 1:30, and it still didn't burn all the way to the edges. Like, there's still a little bit left. So I mean, the burn time on that, crazy, but it does say burn out, like blow out the candle after 4 hours. Whatever, it's fine. It'll be fine. You always have to do a longer first burn. I know that. But let's talk about what I got accomplished last night. Okay, I showed off this really cute little like notebook my roommate gave me, and look at this. Focus. I genuinely feel like I'm in 4th grade again with the little multicolored pen. But anyways, let's talk about what I did. So I took little notes. Something that I found, I think I've kind of talked about how I was feeling very kind of stagnant. You know, I've been working on this same book for the last 4 years. Like, sometimes I'm just like, sometimes I get really intensely excited to work about it, and sometimes I'm like, I could not touch that for a year and completely be fine with it. It's just these moods I get into. So what I did is, randomly at work this week, I started thinking of an old story idea, and for some reason I just felt so inspired that I got stood up by a patient, so I had 40 minutes to kill. I just started like brainstorming ideas for it and just going and going and going, and I was like, wow, I really actually want to work on this story. So I am now tandem working on this my Regency era project and this new project. And I think let's just like talk about it. So I wrote down some notes. Okay, so I worked on that Regency era, finishing that chapter that I was really struggling with in 50 minutes. And it did not feel like 50 minutes at all. It felt like 20 minutes had passed, and I was feeling really good. I was like, okay, cool. Like, you know, let's stop here. Let's move on to my other. So with my first book, I'm on draft 3. So I'm fully like writing, editing, trying to make it, you know, the best it can be before I shelve it for a little while. Meanwhile, in the other one, I was fully brainstorming. So when I brainstorm for, you know, a novel, what I do is first I create the characters, but with that, I also go on to Pinterest, because I have a bunch of Pinterest boards that kind of help me find inspiration for what the characters look like the general scene of the story. And then I go on to Spotify, and it's really funny because I was listening to the Spotify playlist. I have a Spotify playlist for all of my pieces of work that I'm working on, and all of the songs for this one were added in 2019, which is, I started writing my current book in 2020. So this one, she predates my current work. But it was funny because I have decided to make the original story of this second thing I'm working on a little bit darker than expected, and like half the songs just simply like do not work anymore. So it was really fun for me to like listen to the songs, get rid of, you know, the old ones, like really find the vibe and put me in the mood. I will say, this is a PSA, that people need to hear this. Leighton Meester, Blair from Gossip Girl. We all know she's the girl in Good Girls Go Bad, that song. She has an album from 2014. I'm putting the picture up here. I don't remember what it's called. I listened to it on repeat for probably, it's only 30 minutes. I probably listened to it on repeat for 3 hours. Loved it. But let's actually like get into some of my thoughts of how I felt while I was writing. Let's talk about, without any more tangents, hopefully, what my thoughts were last night during those, in the end, 5.5 hours that I worked on this project. So I worked on the Regency era for 50 minutes, and after 50 minutes, I brainstormed for my new project until my timer reached 5.5 hours. Then at that point, I was fading fast. I wasn't really working anymore, so I paused my timer, and the candle burned for, I want to say, another hour. My math's probably not working well, but I did lose a little bit of time on the candle just because it was like very late. I needed to go to bed. But so I was super stumped with the end of that chapter, because the next chapter I need to write needs to be completely, I need to take parts of it and put it in a completely different setting, because I did get feedback that I have too many chapters that all happen in the same setting, and I completely agreed after rereading it. And I was like, okay, so I need to set this scene somewhere else, but that changes a lot of it. So I was just kind of stumped with how to end the previous chapter to set that up, and I did it in 50 minutes, finished the chapter, found out where I was going to go with the next one, and I hadn't touched this piece since the end of January, and I just really feel like sometimes I just need to be okay with shelving something for a while, because what had been stumping me, and I'd been thinking about this for the last like month and a half, fixed it in 50 minutes just because I gave it some time. So I think that's a lesson to myself. And then back to spent most of my second project just, you know, getting in the mood. Like I said, I went on that tangent a little bit early. My MO is that the proper way to say it, but my thing is I love a good love story. I want to write a good love story. I do have some like more serious topics I'd love to write about, but ultimately they're always love stories. So my original project, it was just like a straight up love story. And that was the basis. I was like, this girl is gonna fall in love with this boy. And that's basically all I had. I had some side characters too, because I really do love the found family genre, and I'm trying to like kind of edge my way into the found family. I don't think this is exactly gonna be the found family piece that I like really settle on. But you know, I love a good friend group. I love a good like core group of people, right? So that's all I had. And I think that's why I shelved it for so long, is because there wasn't any other substance to it. But like I said, randomly at work, I just got this like click of this is what's gonna happen. And I gave my main character some struggles. And I'm actually a lot happier with the direction it's going. And I actually think the romance, it's definitely gonna be part of it, but it's a little bit of a backseat to the other things that are going on in my main character's life. And something I originally wanted to do when writing it is I wanted people to not, I feel like whenever I go into reading like a love story, I'm like sniffing out the love interest. Like, you know, the moment that they come in, and also because most of the time like the descriptions of the book mention the name of the person, so when they show up you're like, yes, that's him. But I thought it would be more fun if the love interest is very unassuming and then suddenly you're like, oh, it's him. It makes so much sense, it's him. But I'm still playing with that idea. So I think it'll be a little bit more obvious, but I want this story to be more character driven than my current story, which is more plot driven. So, oh, at like 2 hours in, I was so energized. I was like, I could keep going for hours, and I did. But I was just feeling so hype about my new character and all the new ones I get to know and create. I'm so excited to give them all their storylines as well. I kept writing the same name, like, or my main character's name from my first book. When I was like brainstorming for this, the amount of times I had to backspace and delete her name and write in the new one, they're not going to be remotely similar characters. That's something a trap I used to fall into when I was younger, is that if I went back to reread all my like little pieces and snippets, all my main characters were the same person. This one I'm going to make a concentrated effort that she is very different than my other, but it was just really funny because I kept accidentally doing that. And yes, I had to stop at 5.5 hours because at that point it was midnight. Can I do math? I don't know. I think it was around midnight. And I just couldn't focus anymore. And I was like, I just can't do this. I'm not getting anything done. I started reading, I was reading fan fiction. So I was hopping back between like reading a chapter of the fan fiction, working on my stuff. I'm like, this doesn't feel productive anymore. But I had to stay up and let that candle burn until like 1:30. So anyways, that was very long and rambly, but I have a few hours until I have to run out of the house and do something. So next time I let the candle burn, it will probably be when I get back and I settle in for the night and I'm not doing any of my prepping for the week stuff anymore. So I will probably see you guys back in a few days. An hour in this time and we almost have a full burn. That's crazy. Candles are crazy. Hello, check-in time. So let's talk about day 2. I worked on my Regency project for an hour and 15 minutes, and then I'm calling the other one Red Hearts for now. Red Strings, maybe. Maybe I like Red Strings better, but I worked on that for an hour. So tell me why it took like 7 freaking hours to get through the first burn, for it to burn all the way to the edges, and then less than, I think by like an hour and 15, it had already burned to the edges. I don't know the science behind that or the memory of a candle, but that annoyed the crap out of me. Anyways, now though, I feel like I can do things in a lot more consumable chunks afterwards. But let's talk about day 2. So what I mostly did for my Regency era piece, I'm just gonna call it the Regency one, what I did is, like I said, I'm completely rewriting a chapter to something new, but I had a lot of parts that I kind of liked, or pieces of dialogue that I liked and that I thought would be pretty easy to rework into the new thing, the new chapter. So I went through, read, kept things, phrases, feelings that I wanted to work into the new chapter. That was mostly what I did. And then I feel so much more inspired to write this new chapter than I did when I was just worrying about it for a month. So I just was in my own head about it and I'm excited to write it. And it's just so interesting because I was dreading writing it for so long, and that was really what put me off of writing for a month. And I'm like, you were so dramatic. It was so easy. And I think I was a little bit more conscious, or I was a little bit more unfocused and unmotivated on Sunday working on the Red Strings project, mostly because I think I am a little bit more conscious of my time on my Sundays and Wednesdays. Today's Wednesday and day 2 is my Sunday. Just because those are my only 2 days off. So I was trying to budget my time accordingly by doing half on the Regency project, half on the Red Strings project. But I was less motivated to do the Red Strings project, so I wish I had stayed on my Regency. But it doesn't matter. Today, like I said, is Wednesday. I'm calling it day 3. I think the goal is that I am going to just kind of work on the Regency new chapter. And if I feel inspired, move on to Red Strings. Good update. Good update, team. See you next time. Alright, it is 2 hours and 20 minutes later. I wrote a page and a half, man. I was not very focused. But it's about 700 words that I wrote. More than nothing, more than me not doing anything. Most of the candle, you can see, has burned all the way around. It's just that one little corner that the wick is too far away from. Oh, it's gonna bother me. It's really gonna bother me. But anyways, ready? We're done. Hello. Pretty? Hello everybody, it is day 4 of this challenge. Lighting's weird right now because it's golden hour and I had to shut my blinds because it was blinding me. But now it's coming in through the slats, it doesn't matter. Hair's a mess because I just took out my roller. But important part of the day is getting my seltzer water. I don't really like LaCroix. I feel like it goes flat really freaking quick, but I bought it, so I'm gonna drink it. Flavor, Pamplemousse. I think it's grapefruit. Looks adorable in the cup, which is all that matters. But here we go. I'm gonna light the candle. It looks like there's still a really good amount in there. You can see. Honestly, like, I feel like I'm gonna get quite a few days out of this. Goal for writing of the day is, I don't really have a goal. I want to do both. I want to start plotting my Red Strings project, and I want to at least get a few hundred words in on the new chapter. So I guess that's my goal. Whoa, spitting at me. All right, she has been lit. She has been lit. Timer is gonna start in just a second. And I honestly cannot wait until I have this little ceramic dish. I'm hoping I can like put like a hole in the bottom and put a plant in it. Oh, that'd be so cute. Anyways, there she goes. Back in her spot. And I will be back to check in at some point. All right, see ya. Okay, so something funny is that I have a Pinterest board that I just have titled People. And it's, you know, if I ever want to envision what my characters look like, sometimes I'll go here and I'll like take a peek and see if there's anyone that I'm like, oh, I think that person would work well for how I envision this character. And then I put them in a different Pinterest board for like that specific story. Others I see as like, you know, my headcanons for what characters of other books look like, looking at you, all for the game fandom. Anyways, so I found this photo of Andy Samberg. This very specific photo that I think would work perfect for one of the characters in this newer story I'm working on. It's not even like the main love interest or like the main male character, it's just like one of the friends. And okay, first of all, can we look at, I just noticed these. Wait, that's really funny. Anyways, I think this specific photo would work so well for one of the characters, and so I added it to my People board. And now if I go back to like my normal home, I'm not going to because there's a lot of fan art on it, but there are so many photos of Andy Samberg now, and it's not that serious. I didn't like him that much, but I also want to hear people's opinions. What do you think about blonde male love interests? I know this photo of Callum Turner, I think he is so attractive, and on Boys on a Boat, he is so attractive to me, but I know a lot of people don't, like, they'll say that they just ignore if the male love interest is blonde, they'll just pretend that doesn't exist, and I want to know opinions. It is Saturday. It's around 8 o'clock. I was supposed to go out tonight. I was not going to be doing any writing, but then my tummy started hurting, so I am not going out. But then I just laid in bed and got like a very intense craving for something sour. So I'm going to venture out into the 35-degree weather. First of all, it was 60 last Saturday. It's 35 degrees. I don't want to talk about it. I'm gonna venture out and I'm gonna get something sour, and then that is what I'm gonna do to force myself to write. I'm going to reward myself before doing it. I think that sounds like a pretty good idea. I don't know what I'm gonna get yet. Something sour. I don't know how far I'm gonna get, but I'm gonna put on some sweatpants, and I'm putting my heavy winter jacket back on, as much as I hate to do it. But I will report back with my spoils from my adventure outside. See you then. Alright, here we go. I hate recording at nighttime because the lighting is never correct. That was embarrassing. I missed. Okay. And I think this time, instead of keeping my candle by my reading chair, I'm going to, wait. I'm gonna keep it on my desk today so I can actually see it and be reminded of what I am doing. Let's go. It's been a little while since I last checked in, but I have my handy dandy notebook with all of the notes that I took from days 4, 5, and 6 of this challenge, and we're gonna talk about it. So day 4, I worked on my red strings project for 2 hours and 45 minutes. I wanted to start working on an outline. I'm not a pantser, you know, if you don't know what that word means, which I'm sure everybody kind of on the book community or the writer tube, whatever, knows that if you're a plotter, you plot out your story before writing it. If you're a pantser, you like fly by the seat of your pants and you just, you know, go for it. I used to be that type of person, but then I found that if I was like that, I would just find myself really stuck and I couldn't actually put words on a page. So I am a plotter now. So I literally go chapter by chapter. I do like a brain dump where I'm like, these are all the things that I want to happen, or just random ideas that I get, and then I start to piece them into the chapters. So I wanted to do that, didn't, because I got too in the vibe of character creation. I love looking up character sheets and then going by that and trying to like make my characters, or like sometimes I will read like, I'm on Pinterest, I'm not on Tumblr anymore, but there's so many screenshots of old Tumblr posts, which just makes me laugh. But seeing like, these are 100 quirky traits your character could have, and just reading random ones and being like inspired to make all my characters little weirdos or give them little weird traits, and I love doing that. So I spent 2 hours and 45 minutes doing that. Then on day 5, I got it together and I started working on both my projects. I reread the chapter that I'm struggling on, because sometimes if I have too many days in between, I forget what I was doing. So I read it and it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be after how I ended the last time I've been working on it. But after an hour of working on that, I faded pretty quickly, and I was like, you know, I still want to write the candle still had not burned at the edges. So I was like, let's hop in to Red Strings, and I worked on that for another 2 hours. Yeah, and I was mostly just kind of organizing things. So like I said, I like to brain dump, and I was putting it into more of categories, like this is their appearance, this is their childhood, this is kind of their deal, this is like their relationships with other people, this is, you know, stuff like that. Stuff like that, or like the reason why I want this character to exist. Because I have a habit, I think I like a found family, and I like a big supporting cast of characters. In fact, 2 of my past projects have had like a group of 6, this one included, and I think that translated to my Regency one by me giving the main character a lot of siblings. And so I'm trying to make every single character necessary, like worth it. Like I want them to serve a purpose. And then day 6 is when the fun stuff started happening, when I actually started plotting, and I was going for it. I was in the group. I worked on it for 3 hours, and I was like, yes, this is all such fun stuff. Like, and this book, like I think I mentioned before, I wanted to be more character driven than plot driven. So I was like, I'm not really sure how I will get from point A to point B being the end. But it's kind of becoming more clear. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I will say, so it takes place at a university, and I don't want them to specifically, you know, like go to BU. I don't want to specifically say they go to BC. I'm kind of creating like a mix of the two, because I'm a BU girl through and through, but BC, I'll give it to you, you got a nice campus, okay? If I had looked a little more for a school with a campus, I might have not had so much loyalty to BU. But I'm taking bits and pieces from my life at BU, and like even just like thinking about working in the library, like I got so nostalgic because there was like a table I would like camp out in. I would camp out in that place for hours and just grind and study, and this is kind of reminding me of it, and I'm getting so nostalgic. But also I'm gonna be really honest with you guys, I added up how long I'd been working on this. Total, straight through with candle burning, 19 hours. It feels like it's been 36. I was impressed because the candle's only halfway there, honestly. So I'm gonna be speeding up the rest of this video, I think. But I'm only about halfway through. It's been burning for 19 hours. This challenge is taking a lot longer than I thought it would. Part of me just wants to kind of let it burn one day. Like, it's almost 6 o'clock now, and I'm gonna start another, because I'm done with all my tasks and I'm ready for work tomorrow. So I'm honestly planning on thinking, like, you know, if I can get to like 10, like 4 straight hours, but I feel like it's not even gonna burn that much. I just want to let it burn. But this is also that experiment where it's like, how many hours can I get out of this candle and how many hours can I straight through focus? It's taking so long, but I am being productive. The only downside of this is that to kind of keep a zen, that is such an incorrect way of saying it, to keep a controlled environment, geez, I didn't want to work on my writing anywhere that wasn't in my room while the candle was burning, and I'm using my long stretches of time to kind of sit in my room and do that and not go out places. So because of that, I haven't been able to go to coffee shops or stuff like that I feel like usually inspires me a bit. So I think I'm kind of excited to be done with this challenge so I can change up my scenery a little bit. But yes, that was my check-in for days 4, 5, and 6. And I am probably gonna do just straight through finish the candle and then a final wrap up in the end. Sound gravy? All right, I'll see you guys next time. Hello, everyone. I am reporting for my last check-in of this frickin' challenge. And, you know, I've got the greasy hair. It's raining, so the lighting is horrible, but we're sticking with it. We're going with it. I recorded that exact clip that I just said for a different YouTube video, so if you see it, you know I filmed these clips on the same day. Anyways, let's get to it, talking about day 7, 8, and 9. Which is funny to call them day 7, 8, and 9 because I only did this challenge when I had many hours to set aside. So usually on my days off, on my Sundays, when I could realistically burn the candle for at least 2 hours. And I started this a month ago. That being said, this began a month ago. And I'm a little bit over the challenge because I think, like I mentioned in my last check-in, I was trying to measure what I could do in this amount of time, and because of that I wasn't, you know, writing at coffee shops. I wasn't going anywhere to write and work, and that's where I do my best kind of stuff. So I'm kind of over it. I'm gonna be free little butterfly after this. So let's chat. Day 7, I spent 3 full hours on my Red Strings project. I was not feeling especially inspired to do this today. I just wanted to do it because I was doing this challenge, which, hey, it got me working. But I literally wrote down, not feeling inspired today, but we persist. And I persisted. I did 3 hours of it. I started working on a timeline. I like to have I like to put dates to what happens just so I can check my flow and if it feels realistic for what happens and how the story progresses. I want this to take place over an academic school year where you know, you're getting to know the characters for first semester. Something happens right before Christmas break, and then it's them dealing with what happened at Christmas break for the spring semester. And I also wanted to take place pre-smartphones, just because I feel like a pre-smartphone world, mostly because I just think it's fun that I don't want to involve social media in this story at all. Maybe I don't even want to use MySpace because I put the year as 2006. I was 6 in 2006. I can barely remember what was happening around then, but that is the vibe. I want it to be in 2006. I don't want any social media, maybe brief mentions of MySpace or something like that, even though I just don't want to, but I feel like that's realistic for college kids at the time to be on MySpace, whatever. Anyways, that's where I want it to be because I think it is so fun to imagine them texting on the little slide board. You know what I'm talking about. Or flip phones, aggressively closing the flip phone. That is my preference for how I want this to go down. And I always get ahead of myself. I like to create a big cast of characters, like a found family situation. And even in my Regency era, it's a family with a lot of siblings. Does that sound a little Bridgerton-esque? Yeah, but whatever. I like that when it goes from sibling to sibling in different romance books. A ton of writers do that. Anyways, I don't need to defend myself. I don't need to do that. But I have 6 characters that are part of the main group. And of course, as I'm creating their character profile, I'm like, okay, so the first book is about 2 characters, takes place from their junior year of college. Then I want this character, 3 other characters. I was like, okay, all of their stories will take place in the summer. And the last character, I want it to take place his senior year of college. And I'm like, Chloe, slow down. Slow down. You're getting so ahead of yourself, you've barely done anything. But I did get on a roll, and I only stopped this day because it was bedtime. I also feel like I'm kind of struggling a little bit. Like I said, I want it to be more character driven in their actions and more dialogue heavy for this one because I am not good at dialogue at all. Hey, stop that. My cat is trying to bury her food in the wood floor. But that being said, I feel like my plot-driven story was a lot easier to kind of plot and plan because it was a love story. I was like, it starts when they meet and it ends when they're together, right? That's easy peasy, get from point A to point B. This one, I have a rough point B. I have a rough point B and I want them, it's still a love story. I want two characters to end up together, but I don't want the romance to be like so in your face. Which, now thinking of what I've planned, it is all romance in your face, but I want it to be more about the main character and her struggles. There we go. That's what I am getting at. So along that line, like I said, I want to take place over a whole school year, so I need to find out what needs to happen during first semester to get them to winter break, and then what needs to happen on winter break to get them to finals. So I have very rough outlines, and with each chapter of my Regency work, it was like, okay, so this chapter needed to happen, like, for this specific reason for the plot. Now I'm trying to find what does this chapter reveal about this character. So it's a little harder for me. It's kind of a fun challenge. I just spent a very long time talking about day 7. Let's talk about day 8. So I started with kind of the Red Strings project. I worked for an hour and 50 minutes, and then I worked for an hour on Regency. I wasn't going to work this day. I think this was one of the only days that wasn't one of my break days that I was like, oh, I've got to write. But I had a shower thought that I needed to write down, and that led to the almost 2 hours of the plotting. And then I just kind of wrote in my notes describing that I want this to happen in 2006. And then I tried to finish that one chapter that is completely new in my Regency era. That's completely different from the original chapter because this is my 3rd draft, and I got some feedback about how kind of the same thing happens over and over again, and I agreed with it. So I'm really trying to fix that by making something completely different happen. And I only wrote about 300 words, but then I organized the chapter a lot better with what I wanted to happen. So I have another rough outline of the new chapter. So we're working on that. And finally, day 9, wrote, literally, I can't believe I started this challenge a month ago because I was like, when did I start doing this? And I found what day. I think I started on like March 12th, and actually it is April 12th today. So that's a long time. I wrote ASMR lock-in time. If I put on my big headphones and I put on a scratching ASMR, I can lock in to anything. That's how I used to study. And it got me. I worked for an hour and 30 minutes on my Regency era. Still didn't finish that chapter, but I think I need a change of scenery, which is why I chose to end this. I did see, you know, in candles when you're burning them and you see the metal on the bottom that the wick comes out of. I saw that. I'm calling that I like hit pan or whatever. You know, when you're eyeshadow, you guys know what I'm talking about. But I did make really good headway through that chapter. I got caught up on a transition in dialogue. Like I said, my dialogue is not the greatest. And when I was writing past versions of this book, I said, that's a later Chloe problem. When I would come to like difficult issues, I'd be like, I can skip over it. It's later Chloe problem. I'm later Chloe. I'm her. I am later Chloe. So I need to work on that. And then I tried to, this is actually really funny, is I tried to work, so I didn't officially write down when I started working, because I thought just by what I wrote down that I only worked on Regency. So after that, I sat and stared for an hour at my Pinterest and at my outline for my Red Strings, and I was like, okay, well, this is not happening, so I'm done. I'm done with today. But then I opened my laptop, because I closed my laptop, I was cleaning my room. I opened it to write down one sentence into it, and then I plotted for an hour and a half. So that needs to be added. But by the end of this challenge, I wrote about 2,500 words, which was finishing a flashback that I was having difficulty with, or no, finishing a chapter I was having difficulty with, and beginning a completely brand new chapter that I hadn't plotted yet. And I plotted 5 chapters and characters for my new work. And with this first book that I'm working on, if I remember correctly, with my Regency era, when I plotted that, and I spent hours and hours and hours like at this, like avoiding homework by working on this. It took me, I want to say 4 months to plot it, make the characters, get the original go around. And I'm not like crazy deep into my planning, but I've gotten a lot done with a total of, let me count how many hours I've spent total. Okay, it looks like I spent 9 hours and 45 minutes on Regency, my Regency one. Oh god, this math is hard. It looks like I spent 22 hours starting to plot the red strings. That's crazy. So I was burning that candle for around a little over 30 hours, and it probably has maybe 2 more good goes in it, maybe 4 more hours in it. Kind of impressive. But it was a $30 candle, so it should last a while. Anyways, that was the end of this challenge. I am going to probably take a break from writing just while I work on some more reading vlogs, but still try to kind of do things without the camera forcing me to do it. See if I can be a big girl and actually do the things that I claim to enjoy. Thank you for watching this far. If you've gotten all the way to this point in the video, go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in whatever my next video is. All right.